Another round will bring you down. Another round won't save you now.
Yeah, reverse sweep coming up.
Big win for the Camelot Kings here, Dan. The Valkyries have done it not since week 2. It is the deicide for the Oni Warriors, and they have pulled this game back from the brink.
But the rest of the Solar Scarabs follow up. Down go the Titans. And Lodbra's got the first. What a 1-2 punch from the Bolts.
The damage comes from the Leviathans until Zapman puts them down with the snipe.
Defend their Titan, and the Tartar is Titan. Send us on to a game 3.
The Jade Dragons have come to play. 5 kills in 7 minutes.
Happy Friday, SMITE fans, and God, I'm so happy to welcome you back to the SPL Phase 3, kicking off right here and right now. All of that action and more looking forward to here in Phase 3 of the SPL. Of course, sponsored by our friends over at Alienware, and if you want to jump in on some sweet gaming gear action, you can go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW for discounts on your Alienware gear pickups. But my goodness, Phase 3 is finally back, the SPL is finally back, and there's a whole lot of fun to look forward to. So let's kick it off with Mifflin joining me on the desk. And Miff, how good is it to be back?
I mean, it feels pretty good, man. What was it, about a 1-week break while we were waiting?
It was so long.
Are we not going to count yesterday? We had some pretty poggers SEC games,
No,
man.
you're right. The SEC was fun. But I'm saying the SPL,
now we're the
right,
SPL.
The SPL is back, right? The Phase 2 playoffs were big. A lot of fun to look forward to, or look back on then, but a lot of fun to look forward to here. Remember, all of these games now matter for Worlds. If you missed the SPL waiting room, all of these games now matter for World seedings, things like that. And so some teams probably have easier weeks than others, but all the action starts now, and it starts with the Jade Dragons versus the Valhalla Valkyries and the Olympus Bolts versus the Oni Warriors. We'll finish this off for the day today. And then the big one we talked about on the waiting room, Miff, was Camelot Kings versus Leviathans. Pretty close matchup between two top teams.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that one. That's probably my match of the week. But worth noting, on Sunday, Tartarus Titans versus the Solar Scarabs is actually going to be played in studio, Dave. So make sure you tune in for that one.
Do you think there's going to be a little extra something there?
Little spice?
Layers with the Titans, fresh off a Phase 2 playoff win. Up against his former team of just a few weeks ago.
Going to be looking at him across the booth.
Do you think there's something extra there?
I got to hope there is, man. I mean, if it were me and I'm Layers in that situation, or I'm Bobby, there's something there. And knowing how competitive these guys are, having the experience of playing with them on the console, I think there's going to be something.
But they have to limit it, right? There's a rule because of you where you have to limit the trash talk.
Well, we got to talk about Ducky.
You're right. We got to talk about Ducky. We got to talk about this Valhalla Valkyries team going up against Final K and the Jade Dragons, respectively. Look, make no mistake about it. This Valkyries team has had a tough 2 phases so far here in Season 8 of the SPL. It's time for growth and seeing improvement from this team because, again, seeding now matters. Worlds now around the corner. And Phase 3 all important. So what do you need to see out of the Valkyries today and for the rest of the phase?
I mean, just more team play, I'd say, and maybe facilitating Ducky a little bit more. The conversation around Ducky for the last 2 years has been he's been on a bottom-seeded team or maybe a lower-seeded squad, but he's always been a consistent factor on that team. And here in 2021, that has not changed. He has been a consistent factor for the Valhalla Valkyries, and he's got a unique god pool. I mean, we heard about it on the waiting room. The only first-pick Sun Wukong inside of the league was for Ducky on the Valkyries. I think this guy has a lot of talent. He's got a very good grasp on how to play the soul lane, when he wants to rotate, and how to push a lead. It's just that he is not often given the opportunity to play with that lead. Very often we see Johnny kind of shift his attention over towards the long lane or plays through mid or somewhere else on the map. I think I would like to see the Valhalla Valkyries shift their style and play through one of their stars, and for my money, that's Ducky.
Agreed, and I think it's interesting talking about Johnny as well because we've talked about some 8.9 changes. Maybe some of those carry-style junglers start to come back. Could be a boost to this Valkyries jungle moving forward. But let's talk to Ducky. We talked about him a little bit. We'll now talk to him for the pregame interview. Ducky, it's good to have you back on screen, buddy. We missed you. Thanks for sitting down with me first and foremost. I want to get your thoughts. You've had some warm-up phases here with world seeding not really implicated by any performance. Moving on to Phase 3, Worlds matters. What is the growth, the practice focus for this Valkyries team to improve throughout Phase 3?
I mean, this is our Worlds run, right? There's nothing we can say. We can't say ping diff. We can't use excuses. We just gotta do our best to get to Worlds for when it is.
Yep.
Because I've forgotten. Yeah.
I think early. Actually, I don't know if we've announced, so I don't know if I can say it either. I know. I don't know who knows, but Worlds is around the corner. Is what I'll say here. Yep. Good job, Miff. You've blown up my spot here. We talked to Inbound, later or earlier on this month. He feels like there will be a pretty big jump for the Solar Scarabs specifically in the standings. Do you feel like the Valkyries are poised for a climb up the standings here through Phase 3?
I mean, we've got a pretty tough first week, I'm not going to lie, especially since we haven't played a match since the end of last phase, since we didn't make playoffs and whatnot. So,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go on. Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. We're looking to start off strong, and we're against two good teams, so we'll see how that goes.
Give me some final thoughts here. I mean, it's kind of a small tweak, but Fighter's Mask has been pretty important in the solo lane. Got some changes. Do you think that impacts the build path in the solo lane at all?
I think right now it's just Guardians building Vampiric Shroud.
Sure.
Other than that, I think you still go Rangers on Warriors, but hopefully that will change starting next week, I think.
Yeah, I think next week we might see some shifts there. And so maybe the build path will be a little bit more clear after a week or so of play. Ducky, best of luck today. I'll let you get back with the team. Thanks for sitting down with me.
All right, thank you.
Sure thing. And so, I think Ducky's right there. Look, the Valkyries have a tough first week here as far as getting off to a hot start. Miff, in a situation like this, and again, we don't know what Valkyries are going to show up today because we haven't seen them in a month or so. We've seen this Valkyries team play very, very well. I say a month. It might not even be a month. Close to, maybe. But we've seen this Valkyries team show up, and they play so well in the early game, and they're controlling the game. They're right on the edge of being this unpredictable squad. Unfortunate that they have to play what I assume is an angry Dragons team and fine okay after an early exit from the Phase 2 playoffs.
Yeah, man. They've got their work cut out for them. The Jade Dragons are looking so incredibly strong right now, and I think you're right to highlight fine okay. There's a reason that this guy is so popular within the community, has such a popular stream and YouTube channel. It's because he's legitimately just that good. Competitive and content creation through the roof from this guy. It has been consistent frontline engage. I mean, the Cabrakan is a slightly newer look for him towards the tail end of Season 8 here, but I just love watching him play. It is so aggressive. It is so dominant. And he's a memer, man. He'll say to himself, I'm going to go out into the battleground, I'm going to hold down the W key, and I'm going to stomp on whoever gets in my way. That's generally his mentality, and it is reflected in the play on field. I dare you to find a clip of Fine OK where he isn't holding down the W key. I'm not even certain that he has an S key on his keyboard.
Let me ask you a question, Miff, and this is zoomed out just about the Jade Dragons in general. On a scale of 1 to 10.
Filthy.
Yeah, that was nuts, by the way. Yeah, that was a very real pick and not a meme game where Fine OK was playing Ganesh in the solo lane. There was nothing funny about it. Let me ask you a question, though, about this Jade Dragons team. Scale of 1 to 10, after the performance in the Phase 2 playoffs, how loud are the alarms right now? How worried are we about the Jade Dragons moving forward?
I'm not overly concerned. I recently had a conversation with Kabam, and he said for his prospects at Worlds, he thinks it's around a 30% chance that they could just straight up win it cleanly. That's high.
Cleanly win it.
That is a high percentage. You don't go into a LAN event saying 30%. Like that's ridiculous because the play on field and just showing up on the day of is so important. But he thinks that grasp on the meta, how the team has been evolving, and how these guys have been synergizing recently has only been getting better and better with time. And I think I share his confidence with this team. Maybe not get them that 30%, but I am saying that we should not be worried about them. They're going to bounce back, and I think it's going to be evident here today.
It does feel like 30%. That's
high.
That is high because it feels like every team has that kind of unique edge almost. Who knows which one of these 8 teams are going to show up on any given day. Every team has a little something extra that you can't expect going into their matchup. So let's kick off picks and bans for phase number 3, though. Game number 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Valhalla Valkyries. So there has been slight changes that we talked about on the waiting room. We're in bonus balance right now, so a few gods receive some changes. The hunter build path, the standard hunter build path, the bow tree got a few changes there as well. Do you expect big sweeping differences here in week 1, Miff, or we're still kind of theory crafting? Really next week, 8.9, big changes then. maybe some similarity to the end of Phase 2.
Right here in 8.8 bonus balance, we have seen a couple of unique hunter builds come through. I mean, Death's Toll Transcendence seems to be something some of these guys are looking at. I've seen some dominance rushes as well.
Snoopy
if we're
played
going off of
Devos.
the Devos from Snoopy inside of the North American SCC yesterday. But besides Snoopy, generally, it has still been that Ikavel immediately into Odysseus bow. It's still incredibly strong, and no matter what you're building inside of that first slot, if the enemy hunter goes towards Ikavel, they're winning the 1v1. They
Right.
outtrade you regardless with that power steal. So it's more so about which one of these teams, or which point of the game are these teams emphasizing. If they're emphasizing the laning phase and the ability to establish pressure, I think it's very clear that we're going to see Ikavel inside of that first slot just about every game. If they aren't, and they're keeping their mind more so towards the neutral objective or the team fights, maybe we see some shift-ups in the build here today.
Well, the pick and ban emphasis is going to be fun to watch along with as well. The Valkyries showing some love to Hurrywind, and then potentially fine okay with both of the Hell and the Cerberus, whereas the Jade Dragons giving a little love over to Ducky, the Artio, and the Odin. A couple picks we've seen in the solo lane really dominate things there, and the Jade Dragons don't want to have to deal with that in the first game of the phase. No surprise there. Artemis also takes a seat. Raijin, first pick though, Myth, and this is a continued trend from Phase 2 where for a while it was Tiamat, Morgan Le Fay. Now it feels like it's become Tiamat getting banned out, and then Raijin kind of holds that top spot in the mid lane.
Yeah, Raijin seems to be that favorite pick, that second best inside of role. I thought maybe we'd see a little bit more emphasis towards Persephone. I think that god is incredibly strong right now and has itemization that suits her kit very well, but instead these teams are saying, I like that early game pressure. I like that damage and that scaling that Raijin brings to the team, and the Jade Dragons showing very early on where they put respect on that mid-tier list. Raijin, the first selection overall. But if the name of the game is pressure, the Valkyries are matching up. Izanami, so early on, I mean, your dual lane set from there. You don't have to worry about your support. You're going to find pressure.
I feel like when we've seen, and this is just total feelings, there might be data to back it up, but it feels like when we see 2v2 kills in the duo lane, Izanami is usually involved just because of the ability to hit those autos through the waves, things like that. It's just kind of a gut feeling where this lane might feel more comfortable for you when you've got Izanami. And that's an important feeling to have if you're the Valkyries. You're going up against Smite, you're going up against Panda Cat, potentially one of the best duo lanes in the league this year, argument to be made for the best. And so you got to give yourself some comfort here if you're the Valhalla Valkyries. Osiris did receive some changes in the bonus balance, notably some cooldown. Yamoja did as well, but that's not going to make the Jade Dragons shy away from these picks. Osiris and Yamoja, staunch frontline already for the Dragons.
Yeah, I think as itemization stands right now, I believe it was 8.8 bonus balance where we saw Stone Cutting Sword eat a slight nerf, or that could be coming up in 8.9, but that will affect Osiris if that is live here today. Maybe shifts up the build a little bit. Going off of the SCC yesterday, we saw Stone Cutting Sword go by the wayside for Osiris, and instead it was more so towards that Bumba's Hammer style of build. So keep your eyes on this Osiris, and where it lands, I think it could even potentially flex into the soul lane with that Warrior's Axe change. So keep your eyes on it. Yamoja, though, losing out on that 10% bonus healing from her basic attacks is pretty huge. If we're not adding any additional healers on your team, you can just straight up say Yamoja is healing 10% less overall.
Right.
She can get that effect on her second ability just by proccing the autos. No longer an option. It's not a nerf. It has been removed. That is a facet of her gameplay that is no longer there. So we'll see how that affects sustain inside the lane. Generally, up against gods like Izanami, Yamoja in the last patch was the best that you could hope for. If she's able to auto-attack throughout the entire wave and always connect some poke, Yamoja is there to clean it up. We'll see if her healing can still keep up.
And I wondered, Myth, how you get an early Izanami pick, an early Artemis ban. Where would the priority fall for the Jade Dragons? Because you better bet if you don't pick a hunter in the top 3 to match what the Valkyries have picked, and that's the Izanami, there are going to be some bans down the pipeline, and Rom, as well as the Cupid, both get banned away here from Panda Cat. Heimdall has been kind of a popular answer in spots like this, but let's talk about this tier here, Myth, and we're going to assume for Ducky, it was in one of the highlight plays that Ducky had there. You mentioned it, facilitate Ducky. Let's give this guy the ability to make some plays, and Tyr is a god that can make some plays.
Yeah, Tyr is so aggressive and can completely control team fights inside of the early and mid to late game. He's got great rotation ability. I mean, the second you get that Lawbringer ultimate, rotate out of lane, use it over the wall. This Ares hover, though,
no chance,
has got my eye. I mean, I couldn't imagine where it lands. If Ares gets locked in here, and I doubt it will.
Jungle.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's
just
where it
walk
goes.
up, chain people, force their beads.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it's
not
not.
Deathwalker,
It's not.
so it wouldn't be Ares solo,
No.
right? Jormungandr
There
is
you
going
go.
to be the lock-in. Either way,
Still intriguing though, Myth. Jormungandr.
yeah, it's going to head over to the Soul lane. It's going to pick up Vampiric Shroud, and it's going to have decent sustain and poke potential, very similar to a style of Sun Wukong, but has great scaling with some itemization changes towards those magical bruiser items. I think that Jormungandr is a slept-on god. I mean, we've been saying it on the desk for like 2 months now that Jormungandr is going to come back. I'm glad to see it finally getting picked up. Jade Dragon's going to be piloting it this time around, and with Jormungandr getting locked in,
Whoa, not
we
Heimdall.
know now that it's Osiris going to the jungle.
Wow. Heimdall was where my gut feeling went. Heimdall was hovered, to my credit. But AMC gets locked in, and this is a pick that we've seen Panda Cat play before. This is not a completely out of left field pick. I mean, it's somewhere in that direction, but not completely unseen. Given the comp around this AMC and maybe what the Valkyries have built out here, can the AMC do something here in Game 1?
AMC's got a sneaky good matchup into Izanami. I mean, her stealth is a non-factor. The bees are always going to make sure that he knows exactly where she
that's
is.
annoying.
The slow to chase down the dash as well. And Izanami being one of the strongest 1v1 hunters in the game, thanks to Dark Portal Silence having great burst, as well as one of the strongest stims. I don't think her 1v1's as good as AMC's. The Stinger, the second
Right.
ability, all so much damage. The attack speed stem from just standing near your hives. But spicy picks keep on happening, Dave. Ra locked in.
And this feels like, remember way back at the beginning of phase number 1 here in Season 8, Ra plus Erlang Shen is what the Kings thrived on.
Yes.
The Camelot Kings team loved setting up Twig plus BMT with Erlang Shen plus Ra, and it worked for them. And it's a clear, concise way of setting up for some big damage, and maybe that's what the Valkyries are looking for here.
Erlang Shen on his own should be enough setup, but it doesn't
Should be.
just have to be Erlang Shen.
Right.
Abduct from Kepri, you're hitting Searing Pain, or if you're not, we're having a serious discussion with zeros, right? If you're not hitting your Searing Pain off the Fearless from tier, we're probably going to be having a discussion, okay? There is a lot of setup here for the Valkyries. I think it's very clear what the strategy is inside of the team fight. We need this Ra to one-shot somebody. It doesn't matter who
Gotta
it is,
be, yep.
but it's got to happen. And then once that happens, you have got an Izanami as your follow-up consistent damage post that point. I like this draft a lot, man, but Ra is in an interesting position in that it's a double-edged sword. Sure, you've got slow immunity now in Season 8 on the second ability, so Osiris is going to struggle a little bit more to find that CC lockdown. The sickle probably not going to be the greatest engage tool, but Ra still is largely immobile. It's just the additional movement speed from the passive that acts as his peel, so if he's ever locked in by a Yamoja wall, probably just dead. If Raijin is able to
good point.
connect taunts or something along those lines, probably just dead. If Amuzin Cobb is able to barrel stuff like 2 auto attacks, Ra's probably just dead, but if AMC's in your backline like that, you're probably already losing the team fight. This is a very interesting composition. I'm excited to see it, man. The Valks
Agreed.
clearly pulling something out here.
And I'm feeling a little validated right now, because yesterday during the SEC we were talking about like rooted abilities where you kind of root yourself in place.
Ra doesn't count.
I brought up, how does Ra not count?
Because it's like a 1 second root, man. If even.
But you
0.5.
said root, and that means I'm right, and so I'm right. Let's talk about this Jade Dragons draft, though. Raijin seems pretty consistent. Quick thoughts. Do you think the Dragons have a draft that can make this Ra uncomfortable? You mentioned the emoji wall. Do you think they have a clear game plan to win in Game 1?
It's pressure across the board, man. I mean, the Jade Dragons have been very straightforward with their strategies,
Sure.
and I don't think they're shifting anything up here. I like what the Dragons got.
Well, it's time to kick off Phase 3. Jade Dragons, Valhalla Valkyries. Game 1 starts right now.
And what a way to kick off Phase 3. We get a Raw Game 1. We also get an Amuzin Cobb and Jormungandr Game 1. Aggro, this is set to be an interesting one. And it's not the Vampiric Shroud. It's actually a Gilded Arrow start here by Jorm.
Interesting. This is one that I have not tested, J-Mac. This one catches me off guard. This is new to me. And let's keep an eye on what Final K's net worth is throughout this laning phase, because I thought that he was picking Jorm just to be a complete non-factor up against the tier in lane. Just to completely eliminate the tier's kill potential to you in lane. 2 ships passing in the night. No sort of interaction in that lane whatsoever. 2 combo players just slamming their cards on the table. But hey, if it's the Gilded Arrow, and that still all stands, there isn't going to be a whole lot of interaction in that lane. But if Final K knows that and is then able to get a lot of extra gold because of this Gilded Arrow, then that's just a win for him. I like the pickup if that's going to be the game plan.
And it is interesting seeing that Final K's grabbing. And I remember watching one of his streams, one of his videos, where the Gilded Arrow actually does work with Jormungandr. It's one of the only things off of basic attacks that do work. So we'll see how it plans out for him, if he gets some extra gold in pocket from it, if he gets some extra pressure. He already has put Ducky under that tier 1 tower. We are still seeing this Yemoja here, despite the nerfs that we're seeing, but it's all about this mid lane action. Sam for Soccer dives in, and first blood of the phase goes to the Jade Dragons.
And it's in that 2v2 in mid that we saw be so important during the Phase 2 playoffs, and that's why Raijin is so good. No other mage gets that kill as easily and sets up for that kill as easily as Raijin does, because just that dash in puts so much threat on you as a mid laner, and Zeros just doesn't have the opportunity to react on someone without a whole lot of mobility. You kind of have to be the first one in. The only defense is a good offense in that moment. And so if I'm Johnny, I think that you almost have to, knowing that Hurwin probably got the 3 anyways, I think that just blinking on him and forcing him to 3 defensively ends up saving Zeros there. Because if you let Sam be the blinker and you let Hurry dash in, then there's no shot that Zeros is going to be able to survive.
Interesting, we were focused so much on this Jormungandr, I didn't even notice that Raffer picked up a War Flag for his starter item. We have Bluestone pendant back in the solo lane. It seems maybe this Fighter's Mass nerf might be changing a few things up here as far as those solo lane starts go. Even a horrific emblem from Final K as a first relic coming through here.
Not a lot of spice to kick us off here in Phase 3. Definitely like the Bluestone for tier. Getting a little bit of that extra sustain, it will really help him. And of course, as a stand switcher, can apply Bluestone pretty easily and trying to set up Final K for this gank.
Final K gets pinned by Johnny. Turtle comes out to slow him down. He gets spotted out from the stealth, but Final K will be just okay for it. Instead, Ducky and Johnny will just opt to be clearing the way. PBM gets pulled back by Raffer. Stun not going to connect on Emil the first time, but the second time will catch both of them and force them back towards their side of the map.
Already the Jade Dragons with a pretty good lead, about 1,000 gold. And this composition from both teams have just drafted pressure across the board. I mean, Khepri, Izanami, some of the best dual lane pressure you can have. Besides maybe AMC, Yemoja, that's a lot of really, really good lane pressure. Both the Hunters really driving that pressure, of course. And then in the mid lane, you've got Ra, who clears really well, can get to fights really easily, is a real threat as soon as he hits level 5. Alongside Raijin, who is the premier early game mid mage. Osiris versus Erlong, 2 mannequins abusers in the jungle. And then you've got the solo laners who can rotate easily early on and both have pretty good clear speed. I think this game, I mean, even without the teams on the board, I think you'd be looking at this as a potential blowout based on who gets ahead early.
Ultimate from Sam off the mark, but Zeros is still in danger. Hurrywing comes through, and his Tycho drums plus a couple more autos from Sam will be enough to take down one. But will they be able to get Johnny on the tail end of it? No, instead it'll be a turnaround as Johnny picks up Sam and makes it a 1-for-1 trade and might be able to get more Hurrywin low. And the rotation from the dual lane may just be enough for Mike to save him, but Raffer and Emil are still here. With Root off the mark, that'll be an out for Sam.
Really nice Riptide there from Mike at the same time. And it's a 2-for-1. Setting Zeros behind, definitely a good idea. The fact that Johnny does get the shutdown kill onto Sam certainly helps in that moment in order to try and get something going for the Valkyries. But this is what you have to expect out of a draft that has Osiris Raijin up against an immobile mid-mage in Ra, is that you are just not going to get a chance to play the game fairly. You're going to be on the run from the outset. But once this Khepri starts getting involved, that might be a little bit more difficult for the Dragons to execute.
PBM and Sam here. PBM gets pulled back by Raffer, but Raffer low in mana. River's Rebuke comes through. Sam looking for the kill. Raffer gets caught inside, stunned out. One more bubble will be all that's needed as PBM picks up the kill on the enemy support.
Just that simple. Yemoja's still pretty good, it turns out. Raffer dies with the shell up, I believe. Maybe it just came off cooldown as he died, but ends up dying with that relic up, and now you lose your red buff, you lose your purple buff, and that's the risk whenever you go with these early game compositions, is if you start losing in the early game, if the enemy team chooses to fight fire with fire like the Jade Dragons have, then you're going to start to lose everything pretty quickly. The game is going to look one-sided. But even if that ends up being the case, I think I like the Valkyries' idea. I think they have a very cohesive draft in what they want to do. I think all of their pieces fit well together, and I think against a lot of other teams, slamming pressure would be very successful. It just turns out that the Jade Dragons are willing to brawl it out with you in the early game more than most other teams would be.
Despite that 1,600 gold lead that the Dragons have, the experience is a whole other story. It's only 400-500 petering back and forth between the teams, and it's really just in that support role. In fact, Johnny, with his kill earlier on, even with Sam having 2 kills, Johnny's got about a half-level lead in favor for the Valkyries, making sure to keep them alive throughout it. I'm looking at this kind of mid-lane matchup here with the aggro, and if you're a Raw looking down the barrel of this team, how difficult is it going to be for you to get those ultimates off to really kind of find that safety factor?
It's going to be tough, but once we start 5v5ing, I don't think it's going to be impossible for Zeros. I mean, you've got a Yorm that you can instantly just one ult combo off of a Kepri root or an Erlong pin, unless he gets purification beads, and even if he does, then you're likely going to have enough cooldown to where it doesn't feel too bad anyways. It is Chronos pendant for Zeros with the Conduit gem start, which is a little bit interesting. I think Ra is actually in a really good spot, but I think that a lot of it is because you can go with these do more builds now that Charon's coin is nerfed. And Zero's going with a different direction, going with Conduit Gem to help the clear, and then Chronos Pendant for even more CDR than something like Sands of Time into Doom Orb.
Dragons with the red buff timer look for another invade, or maybe just looking for another fight. Pull in against Sam. Rapper grabs one. Hurry goes up with the Taiko drums looking at Rapper, and he'll get taken down by Panda Cat, but Johnny's still on the hunt looking for Hurry Rivers. If you come through, and Johnny has no way out, the damage is just too much from the Dragons, and they extend their kills 5-1.
And this is the pressure comp beating on the pressure comp, where the team that is designed to do what they're doing is really, really good on the offense. The Valkyries not quite so good on the defense. Not a lot of great defensive tools, and the Valkyries just so split. It seemed like the call was to try and execute Johnny's blink in taunt onto Whirlwind because he didn't have the ultimate, but still had the purification bead, so Zero snipe doesn't land. Johnny becomes isolated, and Erlong Shen is super easy to kill for this Jade Dragons composition with all of the CC they have, the displacement, a little bit of healing coming from the Emoja. Johnny had to get ahead in this game in order to feel like he can actually do what he wants to do. And even though he was ahead of Sam for a little bit, I don't think there's any argument of which junglers had a bigger impact so far. 2, 1, and 3 for Sam on this Osiris. 100% kill participation for the Dragons jungler.
And you see Rapper having a hard time dealing with this comp just from the slow factor. He's completely forgone going for his Gauntlet of Thieves early and instead has rushed into a Wing Blade to give him a little bit of slow immunity as far as when he gets a nice little slow proc. Now, doesn't last forever, and when looking at the other side, there's a slow pretty much on everybody there.
Everyone, all 5 members of the Jade Dragons have slows, so it's certainly a good pickup here for Raffer, but now only sitting at 25 protection instead of that 30. Does feel marginally worse. Think that overall Raffer's just got to find a way to get this shell off and to use his ultimate, because the last 2 times, I think he was out of mana for his first death, but that last one needed to drop Scarab's Blessing on himself.
PBM grabbed, but that'll be the end of that. No further follow-up. Zeros gets a little bit of damage and Searing Pain. Not sure if he actually secured that mid-camp away from them, but a blink in from Ducky finds Hurry when he gets caught in the middle of all of it. And Zeros is the one who gets the credit for the last hit of it. PBM gets pulled back once again, this time having to use his beads.
Really good rotation in from Ducky. Exactly what the doctor ordered there for the Valhalla Valkyries. No beads for Whirlwind. He's not checking his corners. He's not worried about where he could be coming from, whether that's a missed call from Final K or Hurry just not listening well enough. Ended up catching him entirely off guard, which you really don't see that often these days.
Panda Cat looking at Raffer and now Emil. Stinger comes through. Johnny on the tail end. Raffer gets the revive just on himself, and now Panda Cat is surrounded by 3. Taunted back in by Johnny. Picked up with the turtle form. And Sam for Soccer will leap away with the Lord of the Afterlife. But will it be enough to get him out? Zeros is here. No ultimate available just yet. But Johnny looking to close out that gap. Zeros gonna throw out the heal, but Sam makes it out.
Good decision by Sam to not go underneath that tier 2, because Zeros, you know his finger was itching for the snipe, but doesn't end up pulling the trigger. Turns out that when Raffer does find a way to use that ultimate in the shell, things go a lot better for him. Baits that fight perfectly, knows that Johnny is coming on the flank. Panda Cat thinks he's the one baiting, but it's really the other way around. A good rotation and collapse from the Valhalla Valkyries, who are making some positive plays happen on the map. You know, that rotation from Ducky towards mid, that bait by Raffer on left. All of a sudden, it was 5-1, now 5-3. Still a pretty substantial lead for the Jade Dragons, but better than it was for the Valkyries.
It doesn't necessarily for the Valkyries feel like that 3K deficit. They've made 2 solid rotations, one from Ducky, now one from Johnny, able to get a pick off of each of them. And This is something the Valkyries need. Slow picks will keep them alive in this game. You can see Final K is even struggling on this Jormungandr to deal with this tier. This Bluestone giving him a lot of extra power, and Final K just consistently being pushed back under this tier 1 tower.
Still not going to be a kill anytime soon for Ducky.
No.
Pandacat's got to be careful here because no beads for him. Did just get the Stinger up, and that's going to be a huge survivability moment for him in the 1v1 up against this Erlong Shen. But not a ton of ward coverage over here by the Valkyries. They don't have deep sentries except by that purple buff, but it does not spot out Pandacat's ward. Makes it easier for him to stay safe.
Polar Bear Mike in the middle gets pulled one more time by Raffer. Hurrywin puts some poke back at him. Heal from this Raw, able to keep Raffer nice and healthy, but Ducky is bullying Sam in the jungle, rotating over towards this mid lane. Now puts Sam at half. Pandacat diving back under the tier 2 tower, turns around for the Stinger out of panic, thinking that Johnny was going to continue forward.
Doesn't end up finding it, but hey, he lives underneath this tier 2 tower, and I suppose that's worth the idea of going for that ultimate. Like the idea there from Johnny, just doesn't land the pin. And if that pin had landed, then Pandacat likely ends up falling. But with that off the mark, you still are able to steal away his purple, force it back to base. Not a lost cause there from the Valkyries. Worth his rotation.
Pyromancer goes the way of the Dragons. Ducky rotates over, but it's just a little too slow to steal that one away. And looking across the board for the Hunter builds, I would have thought that after seeing the Iqbal and the Odysseus bow changes, maybe those would get pulled away. But speaking of a pull, it's one on Hurrywin. He gets hit by the Searing Pain. Zeros with a nice connection and a red buff steal by Johnny. Means that Hurrywin's going to be down just a little bit further.
It got the sustain there for Mike, and I like the idea from Mike to actually interrupt that abduct with a Riptide to knock him back, but it still knocks him back towards Zero, so it ends up landing the combo anyways. With Zero's build, he's not going for the one-shot, as expected when you go Chronos Pendant. Instead, it's with this Lotus Crown to try and match some of that team fight prowess of a Yamoja heal, trying to bring extra prots to that Divine Light. I think that, or Solar Blessing rather, I think that I would have preferred to see more damage here from Zeros though, because they've got such great setup for him. He's got a one-shot Hurrywin or Pandacat. That's got to be his job. I don't think that I'd be looking at my comp in this position and thinking, yeah, we should go for a war of attrition up against the Yamoja.
Johnny in danger, 3 surrounding him, but he makes it back to the tower. Taunt comes through, Searing Pain by Zeros, only hits 1. Johnny gets his heal off, but still low under that tier 1 tower. The Taiko drums not enough to bring him down, and the jungler will make it back out.
Not a bad idea though from the Dragons to try and collapse in onto Johnny in that moment. Didn't cost them a whole lot, only Hurrywin's ultimate, and he doesn't have a CDR quite yet, but with that Raijin passive, will get it sooner rather than later. Checking in with those Hunter builds like you were talking about a moment ago, J-Mac. I mean, no stacking, not going the way of what Snoopy's build was in the NASEC yesterday. Instead, sticking to this Iqbal Odibo. And when you think that you're going to be team fighting a lot, it's hard to outmatch the value of an early Odysseus bow. That item just has always felt to me like one of the best options a Hunter could ever buy. Get your power elsewhere, just get that huge boost of attack speed and team fight effectiveness.
Huge fight around the Fury. All 5 of the Dragons are here, but it's only 4 from the Valkyries. Ducky is nowhere to be found, and the Fury has little health available to it. Jade Dragons grab that one, and looking towards Raffer, slowed down, caught inside the rivers. Revive already expended. He's not going to have much chance to get out of here. Searing Pain goes through for Zeros, but nobody turned their sights back towards Raffer. He's going to make it out.
You decide that the Jade Dragons pull on the leash a little bit and pull everyone back. Even Final K with that ultimate, but Ducky's here.
Ducky finds the beads from Hurrywin and manages to steal the buff away. Final K going to get slowed down by the Lawbringer. Raffer still stuck around with Emil. They're both low, but a root from Raffer keeps them alive. Meanwhile, Hurrywin is struggling up against Ducky. Raffer finds Sam all the while through it. Zeros is dealing with Pandacat along with Johnny. Takes them down, evens it up. This was 5-1 earlier. Now the scoreboard 5-5.
And that gold lead starting to shrink for the Jade Dragons, despite the ones getting that Oni Fury. Just an overstay there by the Jade Dragons. I don't know what Sam... Who Sam was looking for in particular. Gotta imagine it was Emil by the health bars. But Sam didn't have that use the ultimate, but was not enough. Raffer, Zero still there to help.
Final K pinned and a dive under the tier 2, but it's only Ducky diving for it, and that'll be a disengage for Johnny. Ducky Final K sitting at a quarter health, trying to secure his blue buff with a rotation from the rest of his team could spell more for them. Ducky caught out with no ultimate of his own. He gets knocked up. The Taiko drums hit big. The stun not gonna, or will connect, but the beads make sure that he gets out for a little while longer. Ducky gets that Lawbringer back online and able to leap away, but will it be far enough is the question. Stun, not far enough, and the percussive storm doesn't have the range.
Just enough defense there from Ducky in order to survive that one. Shoutouts to Genji's into Glad Shield, CDR Central for Ducky, which allows him to get those change chances up, dash away, all in the right moments. And it's the little things whenever you're playing a character like Tyr. Switching into that defensive stance whenever Whirlwind had the ultimate out, getting those extra protections, I think may have made the difference. Take a look at these charts, J-Mac. I mean, even though it's a gold lead for the Jade Dragons, it's a even more significant experience advantage for the Valhalla Valkyries. Now, that has not amounted to massive leads in anywhere except for mid and jungle, but that's a big except for. I mean, 2 levels for Johnny in the jungle, 2 levels for Zeros in mid. In this composition, we talked about how it was the other way around. Once you fall behind with the Valks comp, it feels hard to do things. Same can be said for the Dragons. And falling behind an XP counts a lot.
BBM pulled back one more time. Red buff invaded and stolen. Jade Dragons lose on that. Rapper gets hit back by 2 separate Riptides, and I bet he's feeling a little annoyed by the fact 2 of them managed to connect with it, but there won't be any kill from it. Instead, it's Final K and Ducky once again rotating towards this mid lane. Final K falling just a little bit behind Ducky, about a half level was separating the 2 of them earlier, but as you highlighted, it's mostly that level difference between the mid, between the jungles that are starting to expand.
With everyone starting to group in mid, this doesn't help Whirlwind catch up.
PBM gets 1 stun against Johnny, used the Riptide to try and go for a retreat, but Final K is still looking for action in mid. He gets knocked up against Zeros. Raiju comes out against Ducky just to get some damage back. The Dragons are able to push the Valhalla Valkyries away from their side of the map.
All of a sudden, we're playing Assault. 5 people here in mid, and this is good for the Valkyries. I think they should continue to try and keep everyone here, because this does not let Sam or Hurry farm effectively and try and catch up.
Root, not going to find anything. Final K gets a double knock-up. Still looking for more. Goes in with the World Serpent to chase down him. Elite 2 going to get some damage through and looking for maybe just a way out as the rest of the team isn't willing to commit. It seems that they're on 2 separate pages as far as the commit goes. That's because the rest were going for the Pyromancer. All 5 from the Valkyries here to try and slow this one down. They managed to steal the Pyromancer. Now Ducky in the middle of everybody, down to a quarter health, able to get out with the Lawbringer. And it's Rapper and Johnny up at the front line.
Raffer getting low, but still has that ultimate. No shell available for him. Rivers Rebuke, not perfect for Mike.
The Riptide off the mark as well, not able to bring them through. Sam's going to get pushed back, has to use his beads. The revive is there for Emil just to keep him alive for a little bit longer, but Ducky is dealing with the rest of the Dragons. All of them turn their sights towards it. Johnny looking to try and trade one out for it, but the heal comes through. Not enough. The pin from Johnny takes him down.
Finally, Sam ends up falling, but the Valkyries still 4 strong. I mean, it's a 4v4. With both healers still alive. Mike almost did God's work there in order to keep Sam alive with that little bit of healing waters, but just a little bit short in the healing and protections. Take a look at that team fight recap. 10,000 damage to only 6,000 for the Valkyries, but because it's so split up, because Final K goes in pretty isolated, uses his ultimate, and I think it's pretty fair to call that one not super effective in that moment, ends up being a little bit too split up for the Jade Dragons. But Sam continues to get in there. There's no doubt about that one. And the Valhalla Valkyries have got to just continue to collapse onto him because that game plan is working.
But again, that gold lead shrinks. Now only about 2,000 in their favor. And with the Gold Fury back up, the Valhalla Valkyries try and grab this one. And they will do so thanks to the help of Zeros to Searing Pain. Able to get a nice big burst of damage to secure that objective. And again, further shrink that gold lead. Now still only maybe 1,300 gold separate them what was earlier 4,000.
Like the idea there from Mike. He actually, instead of trying to steal it, he knows that Zeros has by far the best confirm. Instead, he tries to reset the Gold Fury by placing Riptides on the edge to bounce the tanks out of the circle. That would have been a crazy play. But Zeros does his job. Valkyries are able to keep it there. And a nice secure from Zeros, make sure that this gold lead continues to get smaller and smaller, but the Jade Dragons don't seem too deterred right now, J-Mac. They're grouping up and looking like they might be looking for a fight, but Sam doesn't have relics for a little bit. If I'm the Dragons, I'm a little bit wary of Sam getting CC chained.
Tier 1 down. Riptide by PBM catches Johnny. Zeros is on the outside, back in the lane. Riptide finds 2 more to zone them away. And Final K at the front line with PBM will make sure to push back the Valkyries. Zeros is looking for a way back in, but everybody on the Dragons knows exactly where he's at. It will not let him back in this jungle.
Dragons are having a lot of trouble initiating with this composition. It was Final K diving in all by himself. You know, there it's Mike trying to find a Rivers Rebuke. He gets the beads out from Johnny, and that is worthwhile for sure. But I think you're starting to see some of the weaknesses of this comp from the Jade Dragons come through. Whereas the Valkyries, they've got very easy engage. It's Johnny or Ducky, or even sometimes a route from Raffer onto Yamoja or Jormungandr can start these fights really easily for the Valkyries. And so that makes their job a little bit easier in these team fights. Dragons have got to find who's starting our fights for us. Are we waiting for the Valkyries to start these fights, or are we going to be the initiators ourselves?
Ducky in the middle of a few, but has more than enough mobility to get himself out thanks to the double fearless between those stance switches. And well, Mike's back gets stopped by the Fire Giant, just reminding him that, hey, you can't probably back inside the Fire Giant pit for the time being. But with the Jade Dragons, with their larger lead they had earlier on, 3,000 plus gold, they're now only sitting around that 1,500 mark as far as their lead goes. The Valhalla Valkyries have been finding picks, and they were down 5-1 earlier, and now we're looking at the scoreboard, and it's a 6-6, essentially dead even game here at just 22 minutes.
It's been fun to watch, too, because I think the Valkyries, this is one of my favorite team comps they've run this year, because it is straightforward and easy to understand what the game plan is. You know, try and use our CC, play front to back. We're just going to hit these tanks. Ducky's done such a good job of controlling these divers and also forcing beads from backliners at the same time. Johnny has been not the primary initiator as someone like a Captain Twig usually would be on this pick like Erlong Shen, but instead been used to come up and play cleanup crew with his great CC later on. It's been good.
PBM caught in the middle again, but he'll be able to make it out. Instead, it's Ducky looking for some poke against the Mage. But Hurrywin will make sure to push him away. Raffer loses about a third of his health, but Final K down a little bit of his own. Be a retreat from the Valkyries, but the Dragons still looking to potentially surge forward, continuing to push them out, get these minions up, and still this group up around this Fire Giant. Both these teams, they really want to grab this objective.
Just using their sustain, both teams trying to do so, but the poke from the Dragons is much better. Ra really does not have very good poke because his beam hits hard, but it's slow, it's easier here. It's not easy to catch someone off guard with that, whereas a Raiju onto a frontliner with just one tick of Percussive Storm can send that bouncing, have really good damage, you know, a Soul Gem proc and a Soul Reaver proc, and all of a sudden the whole front line is 10% weaker. And that's where the Valkyries are a little bit weaker. Plus you got AMC versus Izanami. Don't think I need to explain who has better poke in those situations. So I like the way the Dragons have changed how they're starting these fights. They're not looking to hard engage right away because they've struggled with that, as we highlighted. Instead, it's we're going to try and poke them out, soften them up, and then when they group up underneath this raw heal, maybe we can punish them then.
Valkyries zone the Dragons away so they can take Pyromancer. Tier 1 tower on the right side also fell. That's all Tier 1's out. Ducky is also out of this fight. Use the Lawbringer because he's down to half health. Final K finds 3 with the knockup, and the Reverse Rebuke catches everybody in the midst of it. Zeros is able to sneak his way out, but Sam Prasakher's already in the back line. Final K finds Emil. Sam looking for Zeros. The revive will be good enough to keep him alive, and Johnny can turn it around and at least grab 1, but they've already lost 3 from the Valkyries.
Fine, okay. You're talking about tough time initiating. How about a 3-man knockup from the Yorm? The Valks just get 2 grouped up. In particular is Zeros and Emil. And I love the turn from Hurrowwind. I thought he was going to be ulting Ducky, but he instantly turns that Taiko drums and hits the back.
Johnny's down to half health. He might not be able to make it out. The bees are enough to take him down. Panda Cat gets the kill with the Amuzin Cobb, and it's only Ducky to try and defend against this Fire Giant, but PBM is low. This Fire Giant's going to do some damage to him, but they're not too deterred by it. Already starting it up. Ducky half health, trying to walk his way in, but Hurrywind is the one playing zone.
Love that Hurry's playing zone here because he actually threatens Ducky, whereas someone like Final K, Ducky can literally walk right by him. Hurrowind's not going to let him do that. They can take as long as they need on this FG, and the Jade Dragons do end up securing it. And it's all on the back of that play from Final K, man. A 3 knockup
you just don't see this very often. I can't wait to see it from his perspective.
Yeah, we got to get the nice up-close perspective of this. He just sneaks right around the back and finds
Oh,
all
man.
three, even catches the dash from Emil amidst all of it, and he just continues to go for the solo chase of his own, as Emil is the only one there with that Thorns. What is Emil going to do to this Jormungandr?
Not a whole lot, and Fine is able to still come in and make an impact later on with an ultimate as well. Really impressive. And not to be overlooked is the 3-man Horrific that he gets off of that as well. That Horrific emblem that he started with also ends up being very big in that moment. Top of the player damage charts, 103. Gilded Arrow Yorm coming to a game near you.
Coming to mini games, potentially. Maybe we'll see this a little bit more in the future from them. I'm curious to see if he'll actually keep this and upgrade that to the Diamond Arrow and get
No
a
shot.
little bit more. But I mean, it's more damage you can get from your basics.
No shot.
No?
No. You have to sell it. I mean, you can get Mantle, you could get Nemean Lion, if you want to dive onto Emil in particular. If you want more damage, you could go Soul Reaver, you could go Coin. Like, there are a lot of things you could go in that spot. If he upgrades that JVac, he's trolling, bro. No shot.
I mean, he killed Emil with only with the base of it. If he
I
gets
agree.
the upgrade, I mean, look, there's no lifesteal for Emil, so he can just take that trade almost infinitely, especially if he's got that Thorns. I don't know. We'll see where he goes with it. Instead, it'll be looking towards these tier 2 towers to take them off the map. Left side one already down. Final K will do the last damage to take out the mid lane, and a quick movement over towards the right side of the map to take the last one away and add a total of 4,500 gold to the pockets of the Dragons just off these towers.
Now, we often talk about this first Fire Giant really being a means to an end to secure your next Fire Giant. And it makes sense that the Dragons aren't going to be pushing Phoenix right away because there was a lot of gold on the map. They weren't up by very much. And then they end up going and just clearing out all the towers, getting all the gold they can, and now they can start it up again. But they're still not up by that much. And this next fire is going to be enhanced. With Zeros having Snipe, I think I would have maybe been a little bit riskier with this Fire Giant because I don't think that just getting towers and putting yourself up 8K at 30 minutes is enough to secure your next one. I think they need to push pretty hard for this Phoenix.
So he's trolling, is what I'm seeing. He's trolling.
I think so. I think it's not his best possible option there. As I said, I haven't tested a whole lot with Diamond Arrow Yorm, but I have to imagine that his effective DPS is lower with this than something like a Soul Reaver.
We'll see how it pans out for him. An upgraded Shield of Thorns on the tail end with it, so an extra bit of Hunters, please don't attack me, or Hunters, you probably shouldn't attack me, especially if you don't have that lifesteal online, as Emil does not have a lot to his name with it, only a couple % with it with that cow. But straight to the Phoenix, the Jade Dragons go left side. Ducky doesn't even have a chance to get out. The Lawbringer will be silenced out too many times away for it. Jade Dragons get one, and maybe even looking for more.
Onk popped by Raffer. He wants to keep on going, and River's Rebuke could have stopped that chase from happening.
That's going to keep everybody zoned away, but not the Tycho Drums. Hurrywin finds one and pops the revive, but now it's Panda Cat alone in the back by Johnny, able to get a solo kill for himself and able to make his switch retreat. But all the while, Sam and Final K are bullying Zeros under the Phoenix. Ultimate in by Sam will catch Raffer. Hurry with the last hit forward, and Zeros all the way back to the base. He'll try and run, but Hurry is going to chase him down and get the double.
Johnny, the last one standing for the Valkyries. It was an honorable effort, but it ends up being a triple kill for Hurry as the Dragons close out game one.
Took him a little while to get there, but 29 minutes in, the Jade Dragons are able to close out the first game of the phase. But that's not to discount the Valkyries here. They're looking pretty hot here in this first game.
I thought they did a lot of things really well. I like their draft. I think that's a part of the game that they've struggled with, is figuring out how they want to play. I think that you listen to Ducky's pregame interview, he knows that this is a tough week for them, that these are tough matchups. I think coming out and having that type of performance with a new style of composition should give the Valkyries a little bit of confidence going into game two, because they were able to come back from an early deficit with a composition that does not come back from early deficits very well.
Look strong here for the Valkyries in game number one. Are they able to keep that momentum and maybe bring us to game three with a nice win in game number two? Well, we're going to have to get to game two first to find out, so we'll take it to the desk right after this break.
Let's go.
I want to take off my jacket for this one. Oh, dude, this. No, I know he was supposed to take you out last weekend, but he got busy.
That's right. Outside of just the awesome gameplay that we've got in the SPL, we've got a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes content as well. And you can get your fill at youtube.com/SmitePro, whether it's Barracuda taking his jacket off or Agro's opinions with an A. All that content and more at youtube.com/SmitePro. And then Smite VOD is where you want to go to watch all of these games back. Game number 1 goes to the Jade Dragons. Not without a little bit of pushback, though, Miff, from the Valhalla Valkyries. But this has kind of become standard for the Valkyries, where they show up well in the early to mid-game. They're a part of these games. And then towards the end, the Dragons just kind of stand tall.
I think it is worth noting, though, historically, when the Valkyries have looked good in the early game, it was just the Valkyries controlling the early. This one actually starts out, I believe, 5-1 or 5-2 in favor of the Jade Dragons, and the Valhalla Valkyries mount a pretty nice comeback in making proactive plays inside of the jungle. A lot of invade attempts from Johnny around this red buff set up for some kills.
This is fun.
And then a little bit later on, it just felt like the team fight falls apart off of this engage right here. Final K with a 3-man knock-up completely shakes up the Valkyries. We see immediately they get separated. Emelito left high and dry, actually losing the 1v1 up against fine, and once the team fight starts rolling to late in favor of the Dragons, it doesn't stop rolling.
Yeah, Hurrywin didn't get any of the kills on that engage, but worth noting that the Tycho Drums follow-up off of that fine OK knockup was huge. And then Hurrywin finally got his kills rolling through, and they were the important kills to end the game. Always a matter of time, right, until this Raijin starts to swing. And I guess the matter of time was right at the end of the game. A triple kill from Hurrywin ices this cake, and the Jade Dragons take game number 1. And so, you know, again, Ducky in the pregame interview said, we know it's a tough week. We've got growth to do over all of Phase 3. This is an okay, I mean, look, you want to win this game, of course, against the Dragons, but I think an okay way to start. To your point, Miff, that you at least showed some bounce back when the Dragons came out hot. You were able to pull your way back into the game and didn't completely crumble off an early Dragons lead.
I completely agree. And some of the players that were struggling throughout the early game still have good performances. We were concerned that maybe Zeros would get blown out of the water on this Ra, as it is a largely a mobile pick into a composition that the Dragons have that could just punish it easily. Falls for first blood at around the 2-minute mark and still bounces back, finds 15,000 damage throughout the match. I mean, the conversation that we had early on that Ducky's been the one consistent factor does not ring true in this one. I mean, 100%. I accredit that good performance, the Valkyries, specifically to both Zeros and Johnny. The 2v2 inside of mid that you highlighted between the Erlang, Shen, and the Ra was just working out. Johnny, what was that, 6-3 ending the game?
5-3 or 6-3.
Clean performance. Just facilitate this guy. I take it back. We don't care about Ducky anymore. Let's get Johnny looking good.
Well, and that's a good point now. When you start to consider picks and bans for Game 2, Miff, do you then start to I think I like the mindset that the Valkyries had there. A composition where you set up for Zeros. It's kind of a clean-cut mindset as far as team comp goes. As you look forward to Game 2 and the picks and bans for Game 2, would you be surprised if the Valkyries continue that type of thinking? Do you want the Valkyries to continue that type of thinking? Or maybe go outside of the box, outside of Erlang, Shen, plus Ra, things like that?
I think that style of composition really can work out for the Valkyries. I mean, just having Johnny on an early game facilitator, having Zeros on somebody who can be that far-ranged artillery strike damage. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Ra. It could be Persephone. It could be Kukulkan, something along those lines that kind of fills that same criteria. Especially considering we didn't really see the Ra heal get utilized too much inside of these team fights, which is the main reason I think you should be picking that god. I think the style of composition definitely has merit, and it's easier to execute on. That's a very standard OG style of Smite in that my mage has big damage, I'm going to set up for that, and it seems like it's something that they are capable of executing on already, especially considering this is the Jade Dragons, by the way. I mean, these guys are incredibly strong, and the Valkyries made that a contentious match.
We'll see how the Jade Dragons and the Valhalla Valkyries pivot their mindsets, if at all, going into picks and bans for game number 2. We wondered how we would see Osiris and his priority maybe change after the bonus balance changes. Slight nerfs to Osiris, some changes to Yamoja as well. I think we still saw in game 1, both of those picks for the Jade Dragons, that both picks still have their ability to impact the game, despite a couple of changes there. Jade Dragons stick with this Artemis ban. Happy with getting AMC for PandaCat down the stretch there. And then Artio follows up as well. I think after what we've seen from Artio over recent weeks here, Miff, would not be surprised if this kind of gets into permaban territory.
Yeah, I'm thinking it is, man. I mean, the damage output, the backline disruption, the lane bully, the fact that you can leave her alone in lane for the most part, and she is going to thrive regardless. How itemization for Guardians inside of solo kind of lends itself pretty well towards MP5 inside of the build, means that you don't even need to necessarily worry about your blue buff post level 7 or so. I think that it's just kind of a perfect storm, a concoction that leads to Artio being as dominant as she is right now. Maybe we see some broad sweeping changes again with this 8.9 once it drops, but as of right now, I agree with you, man. Artio is where she belongs, and that's the ban column.
Wow, and the bans don't change at all here for the Valhalla Valkyries or the Jade Dragons, for that matter. Odin and Artio both taken away from Ducky, and then Cerberus, Tiamat, Hell, all taken away from the Jade Dragons. So the Jade Dragons, remember, they picked Raijin first for Hurrywind in this spot in game number 1. The Raijin looked good, had the ability to follow up with good damage on some good setup from the Jade Dragons. Don't know if you have to force that pick still here just yet, but why not? Looked good for Hurrywind, and we'll run it back.
Yeah, there's still plenty of mages available for the Valkyries to look towards as well. We already highlighted the
100%
Persephone
win
early
rate.
on. Okay, I mean, but that's just today.
Jormungandr has a 100% win rate in
With-
Phase 3 of the SPL.
Yeah, with one game played, that is yes,
Both of
that's
those
a stat.
things can be true at the same
Yeah,
time.
yes. You're right. Okay, so anyway, Persephone's still out there, the Morrigan's still out there, but the Valkyries very happy with the performance from Izanami in this last match, and I think they're right to do so. The pressure that they were able to establish inside of the long lane, just thanks to those piercing auto attacks, was a huge boon. That's what opened the door for Johnny to be able to rotate in and try and get contentious around these enemy red buffs. So, great start for the Valkyries.
Yeah, Izanami didn't feel like it was that one highlight of Final Case against Emilito feels kind of bad, where he's just getting run down by Jormungandr. But maybe this is the Valkyries showing us that while the end of the game didn't go our way, maybe the core of our team still felt good. If the Valkyries finalized their top 3 with a Khepri, that's the Valkyries, I think, saying that it was user error, not necessarily composition error in game number 1. So the Jade Dragons might have to be wary of that, though. If you're the Dragons, are you okay with running things back?
I think so. I mean, you could make the exact same argument that you just made for the Valkyries for the Dragons. Hey, we were dominating the early game, 5-1. Maybe it was user error that allowed the Valkyries back into this matchup. Clearly, we're able to perform on these picks. So if it's going to be a salty run back, I'm fine with it from both sides.
There's the change.
But that Ares hover that we saw last time around has become an Ares lock-in. Likely going to be headed towards that support role. Got to assume based on the composition as it stands right now. But does have a little bit of flex potential. When I say a little bit, it is microscopic. It is minuscule. The amount of flex
close to
potential.
zero as
yeah,
it can
as
be.
close to zero as it can be. It could be Ares jungle, could be
Wow.
solo, but maybe it's not even worth talking about
Wow.
since Afro's locked in.
And maybe this is interesting if, and I assume this is going to zeros, you look at a performance that Johnny had on the Erlang Shen, and the Erlang Shen was looking good, and you want the Erlang Shen to be alive more. Maybe you just pocket it with an Aphrodite. You're going to have the Erlang Shen up front, and of course that's one specific use of this Aphrodite, but maybe is a good way of facilitating what was one of the strongest pieces of your team in Game 1.
Yeah, I think so. Back off damage is very easy to follow up on if you're worried about maybe Searing Pain not finding its way home every single time. As long as he's connected to Erlang Shen, the second ability from Aphrodite is going to deal damage. It's going to facilitate this assassin apply that slow and allow these auto attacks to keep ringing true. Even just up against Ares, you've got a decent matchup in that Undying Love. Invalidates that no escape for at least 2 targets. I mean, it's a good composition, but I share the same concerns that I had last time around. This Aphrodite, similar to Ra, is very exploitable inside of the early game, and we saw that Zeros struggled in the early game last
That's a good
time.
point.
I think it happened here again.
He was jumped on a lot. Now you're going to have an Ares to deal with. Maybe the 9 turns blessing will help you out if you're the Erlang Shen, the Aphrodite with the Undying Love can maybe help you out, but I think you're right there, Myth. Jump potential for the Jade Dragons against Zeros over in the mid lane. So Hunter bans remain the same for the Valhalla Valkyries with their last 2. They're going to take a couple of those picks away from Panda Cat, but then Panda Cat said, okay, I will take the AMC. And that's how picks and bans for game number 1 rounded out. We'll see if the Jade Dragons opt for the same thing here. They'll only get 1 pick, but they elect to ban out a couple supports here as well. So Khepri will be a different, or Khepri will get banned out, so a different look at support. And Horus is the answer here, Myth. A select few supports in the SPL run this Horus, and I guess we're adding 1 more into that pool.
I've got concerns now for this Valkyries draft. I'm just not sure what the game plan is inside of the team fight phase. If you're not winning the early game thanks to the efforts of Johnny, and you approach that 15-minute mark around these Gold Fury engagements from even, the team fight's looking a little bit weak right now. It's single target CC lockdown from Horus, repositioning tools to be sure. You've got decent sustain from Aphrodite, but who's getting your kills? You don't have that burst damage from your mid laner. It's an Aphrodite now. Erlang Shen from even or behind struggles to find damage, and Izanami being your sole focus for early game aggression as far as lanes are concerned. As of right now, Aphrodite likely going to get out cleared by Raijin. Soul lane are still not selected for the Valkyries. We'll see whether or not they draft pressure there, but I'm not sure what the Valkyrie strategy is, barring Johnny, please just go off.
Right, and all we need, and what we're assuming all we need now, is the Valkyries. So there's not going to be this massive carry, kill confirm-esque damage being added into the back end of this draft. Could be Kuzumbo, or Kuzumbo would have some flex potential there as well. Let's talk about these final 2 lock-ins, though, for the Jade Dragons, because, Myth, between Osiris and Ares, that's solo or support and jungle, you'd assume. This means Zhang Kui goes to the solo lane for Fine OK, and are you happy getting a look at that here in Game 2?
I've never been a huge fan of Zhang Kui.
He's got a 0% win rate in Phase 3.
Well, yes, that is true. So why are you going towards it? Zhang Kui has good damage output, has good AoE spread inside of these team fights with all the healing that is coming from the Valkyries, especially the single target healing from Aphrodite. Being able to spread your damage evenly inside of a team fight feels pretty good. You've got decent aggression if the duo lane for the Jade Dragons pulls ahead. There's no hunter I'd rather not play against ahead than Danzaburo. I mean, it feels like the second he's got a 1-level lead, he just presses 4 and I die regardless. Ares as well, once he's able to pull a lead, can absolutely dominate a match. This Sobek lock-in, though, does shake up the P's and P's a little bit here.
Solo.
Yeah, solo back. Yeah.
Solo back. That would make some sense here. Game number 2 between the Jade Dragons and the Valhalla Valkyries. All those questions and more will get answered right now.
Man, what an interesting first set of games we get to go into with an interesting first round of picks that come through it. I mean, last game we had AMC and Raw. This game we get Aphrodite out of all of it, and then Zhang Kui from Fine OK in the solo lane. Aggro, this is it's an interesting set to say the least to start off our Phase 3.
Fun way to do it, for sure. I like the adjustments the Jade Dragons make. I mean, the fact that the Valkyries are going to top 2 Erlong and Izanami again. You can see the buyer's regret there from Mike at the for Game 1 where he hovers the Ares and then asks us, so we already have Umoja, and no one else is playing it, so I've got to take it. Going with the Ares this time around, I like quite a bit. It feels very good up against Erlong and Izanami and Horus, for that matter. A little surprised that Raffer picks Horus into this Ares matchup. But for the Valkyries, I mean, if the games are going to go long, if we're going to be able to center ourselves around these picks, going for an Afro can be really, really strong. I have no problem with the adjustment the Valkyries have made.
Immediately, Raffer forgoes caring about the wave and instead goes for Panda Cat's health bar. It takes him well under half to start it out and has a blink for his first relic, so he's looking for very aggressive plays out of this dual lane, looking to get some big initiations, use that fracture, use that knock-up immediately along with it to get some extra damage through. We'll see how that dual lane pans out for the Dragons, but it's back towards the mid lane action. Hurrywin already out of beads just at level 2.
Yeah, not a great beads there from Hurry. You're either beadsing that right away or you're not beadsing it. Those are your options from that position. And he decides, I will beads it now.
Sam goes in looking for Zeros, but he gets stunned out by the kiss. Sam still looking for a little bit of chase, but Johnny's dealing too much damage back to him, and it's a turnaround for the Valkyries. This time, First Blood goes the way of the Valhalla Valkyries. They get one and might be getting another one. Panda Cat low and stuck inside the wave. That's a kill for Raffer.
Really beautiful start now for the Valkyries. I mean, Sam just goes in all alone. Definitely a bad decision from him after Hurry's bad decision the wave before, and then they get punished for it there. And Panda Cat not respecting the damage coming from Raffer, maybe was expecting Mike to be able to chain out that fracture. And if they could have baited it and chained up at Raffer with Panda Cat still standing, maybe that could have been a kill, but Mike either didn't land the chain properly or Raffer was able to get around him with the blink and really set up a nice kill now for the Valkyries, who have 2 lanes to lean on now that have gotten leads.
An 800 gold lead to their name with it. Panda Cat and Mike both stuck under the tower. They lose their Scorpion to ML and Raffer, who are able to push them under that tier 1 tower thanks to the help of that First Blood. The solo lane will be something that'll probably be largely ignored for the most part of the early. It's a Sobek, it's a Zhang Kui. A little difficult to kill as far as a Sobek goes, maybe not as much for a Zhang Kui. Still is a mage at the end of the day, but Fine OK building into that slightly tankier first option with that Vampiric Shroud.
Not going for something different just because he's up against a magical solo laner, kind of building for the jungle matchup, which is oftentimes what you have to do in solo, especially when you're up against a Guardian who isn't going to put a whole lot of threat on you anyways. I think that the Vamp Shroud's the right call for Fine. Expect an early Pythags would be his first option. That gives him a little bit of tankiness, still goes in that lifesteal direction, and then can go a little bit tankier from there if he so chooses. But I think the Zhang can be very good in this game. I mean, you look at a character like Izanami, who once she has her dash, you can just blink in a Zhang, follow it easily, and set yourself up for some good success. someone like an Afro, don't really have to care too much about her ultimate. I'm just going to blink on her and force her to use it and try and time my 2 when she's not using that ult. Then I can really just take her out of the fight all by myself. So I like the Zhong pick here for Fine OK, despite its limited success we've seen.
Maybe worth noting that, once again, Raffer has gone for the War Flag as a first relic for himself, instead of the more traditional Sentinel's Blessing, and is going back towards that Wingblade, most likely first item that he had last time. There's still, I think, equal amounts of, actually maybe one less slow via Panda Cat, so nearly equal amounts of slow for the Jade Dragons means that he's going to need something to get himself away. Where on the other side, Polar Bear Mike, he didn't go for a Gauntlet of Thieves immediately. He instead did a Sovereignty Rush to start out.
Love it, because Zeros isn't going to do a whole lot of damage, especially in the early game, so you don't have to worry about building a Thebes for both magical and physical protections. But Raffer is going to do more damage than he typically would, so you get the Sovereignty, save yourself a bit.
Mike looking for Emil, but Johnny is right behind him, as well as Raffer. PBM hasn't hit 5 yet. He's got no safety. He gets knocked up, slowed down, knocked up one more time by the turtle, and it's another kill on the board for Johnny, and the Valkyries continue to push their lead.
Perfect by the Valks. Emilito doesn't run. He stands his ground, makes sure that Mike wants to step up a little bit, and it's right as Purple Buff spawns as well. Only 1 or 2 real wards on the map right now for the Jade Dragons. They're both around these mid-harpies. All the rest are vision shards, and they didn't have any on that left-hand side. Mike's was down, so he couldn't place it behind him. Jade Dragons not having vision makes it easy for the Valkyries to find their 3rd kill.
The downside of a Guardian is Secure of the buff is a little bit weaker. Ducky loses that blue buff, but might be able to get a whole lot more in return. Sam jumps away with the ultimate. Raffer misses the fracture against Sam, but maybe looking for Final K instead. He gets slowed down, pinned by the Erlong Shen, but a 4-man stun from Final K might just turn the fight around. Sam, Hurry, and Mike are here to try and stop this one. Valhalla Valkyries, after that stun, they make an immediate retreat.
The big tether from Sam at the same time. Good decision from Final K to hold on to the beads. I don't think many would in that position. I certainly wouldn't. 4 people on my tail. I get pinned by an Erlong Shen, but Fine wants to pull them as deep as possible because he knows that PBM and Hurry are on the way with their rotation. Love the idea there from the Dragons, just Valkyries a little bit too wise to it. Don't overplay their hand, play it smart, and are able to walk out of there without any deaths.
It is going to be that Pythagoras piece for Fine OK as he picks it up on his first back. Meanwhile, Ducky looks like he picked up a Genji's Guard to get a little bit of magical protection online, get a little bit of CDR, similar to how he ran the tier last game, but he hasn't gone for a starter item yet, but we'll hold that thought as Hurrywind and Mike in trouble in the mid lane, slowed down. Horrific Emblem won't be enough to save Mike. Emil, with his rotation towards mid, they pick up a 4th kill for the Valkyries.
This Ares, I mean, when he has his good matchups, you feel like, oh man, I'm going to be able to do so much. And then you just get set behind, and all of a sudden, even your good matchups become bad ones. Erlong Shen, one of the strengths of this character is that the characters that do well into him, if he gets ahead, he punishes them pretty hard. Because a lot of them, Ymir, Ares, they don't have options to his ranged CC. So when Johnny is this kind of lead, and he's got a Zeros pocketing him, it's difficult to stop him, even with a pick like Ares.
Raffer's walking up by himself, but there's 3 dragons here. Raffer goes in the sky, but it's not going to be in time. Sam for Soccer rotates over and gets first kill for the Dragons with the rocket from Panda. Thought he was going for Emil, but instead he veers off towards the left. PBM still looking for further action, or maybe just a red buff invades. Zeros and Emil are tethered together. Taiko drums from Hurrywind will push Johnny away while the rest of his team looks at Emil and Zeros.
Zeros is able to use his ultimate to immune Mike's very, very cleanly, and Hurrywind never able to participate in that fight because of Johnny and his good positioning. In fact, Hurry doesn't have beads. Yeah, I think he's just dead.
Raiju dealing a lot of damage back under the tier 2 tower. Johnny still going for it, gets the heal, needs one more basic, will find it, but now he needs to find the escape out. Heal is good, but he's looking for his option. Use the beads to get out of the root. Sam still chasing, slow is good, but will he get out of the tether in time? The turtle's not fast enough for him. Sam picks him up for his 2nd kill.
Close, but no cigar there for Johnny. Still able to get Hurrywind and played that engagement really well. Didn't leave Hurry with a whole lot of options in order to survive. And it's 3-1-1 now. Sam gets a pretty big shutdown kill on the Johnny, who was starting to really dictate the pace of this game. And when you've got a fed jungler with an Aphrodite attached, they become nearly impossible to stop.
Mid-camps go the way of the Jade Dragons. Gold Fury has spawned in because of the Scorpion that was taken earlier on, but the Dragon's not going to look towards it just yet. Don't have everybody in the vicinity to do so. And with the solo laners, it's just an even level 9 between themselves. And even despite the 5 kills of the Valkyries, it's a little bit of a turn from Game 1. Game 1, it was 5 kills for the Dragons, 1 kill for the Valkyries. Now we're looking at 5 kills for the Valkyries, 2 for the Dragons. If you look at the gold, though, it is a dead even state experience, only 1,000 in favor of the Valkyries so far. And with this potential red buff invade, maybe looking to extend those kills for the Valkyries.
Johnny not linked right now. Mike's ultimate could be big, but Raffer might be just ejecting from this play, but come on back, boys!
He reels him right back in with Johnny on the tail end of it. 2-man knockup from this horse is good, but Raffer gets stunned out by the tether. Ult in from Panda Cat, finds one in the back line. Emil is gone, Zeros is chained away, and so is Johnny. Zeros falls down, Johnny on a sliver of hell as Panda Cat finds him. The Raiju connects to slow him down, and Panda Cat picks up an early triple.
Valkyries just overstepped the slightest amount, and Mike's ultimate is perfectly timed in order to pull them back. I didn't see who Zeros was linked to. Maybe it was Emilito that his ultimate immuned, but he didn't save Raffer or Johnny, and those were the two that were in the gravest danger. Raffer's got to hold on to that ultimate just a little bit longer in that situation, but he really can't because they're overcommitted and they need it as an actual mobility tool, not just to get the CC immunity for the support. So beautifully timed by Mike. Jade Dragon's there to punish. And the Ares, as bad as it looked through his first 2 deaths, really wasn't able to do a whole lot as we didn't expect it to do. We expected it to do quite a bit. There makes up for it all with 1 play.
He's going to lose his blue, but that through the skies is great for getting your team out, and it provides you some immunity as far as the first part of it. But Mike times that ultimate perfectly, waits till right as they're about to leave and yanks it back in. It's kind of like when you pull an Athena back from her ultimate, kind of that same good feeling of, yeah, you thought you made it out of here, but even with all those kills, with all that pressure the Dragons got back, that Gold Fury still goes towards the Valhalla Valkyries, and they're going to keep themselves in, now down about 1,500 gold.
It's a big play from the Valks in order to keep momentum on their side because their team fight is still nasty. I mean, they've got great initiation between Horus and Sobek and Erlong Shen. They've got the Aphrodite healing. They've got a lot of tools.
Oh, Sam caught in the middle of 3. Lord of the Afterlife gets him out, and PBM is there to make sure he can find his way out, but Emil doesn't have anybody on his side to save his life. Panda Cat gets a solo kill against his enemy Hunter. Red buff was secured. Hurrywind dives in with the Thunder Crash and the ultimate. No escape, won't bring anybody back, and Raffer, just as quickly as he thought he found his way out, meets Panda Cat in the jungle. Panda still going for the chase with that leap. Raffer blinks out, hits the wall, and that should be enough to get him out.
Panda 2 levels up on Emil, had just walked over from securing that solo kill, but now all alone, Johnny's here.
Johnny looking for him. Feeds are down by Panda Cat inside the field. Panda's just a little bit healthier for him. Use the Aegis to hold him on a little bit longer. Taunt catches 2. Panda Cat fighting
way.
the 2v1. Will he be able to make his way out? Make it a 3v1. It's
no way!
Through, but it's 1 for Panda. Ducky has to leave. Johnny has to leave. Ducky didn't leave, though. He's still sticking around. Taunt comes through to zone them out, and Panda is just laughing by standing around with Emil here. That should be the death of Panda.
He checked it. Finally, Panda Cat goes down. Won the 1v3. Don't get it twisted. He won that 1v3. It was the 1v4 that ended up being a little bit too much, even for Panda Cat. What a play, though. I mean, it's smart from the Valkyries to not just all-in commit, because if he would have killed Ducky and Johnny in that spot, there's no coming back from that play mentally.
PBM looking for Emil. He's level 8 versus a 13, but this Ares still doing a hefty chunk of damage. All 3 chains connect. The silence is good for the Dark Portal, but that's not going to save him from the damage from Hurrywind's rotation. And Sam and FineOK team up for an invade at the speed buff, taking Johnny down, adding 10 kills now to the Dragon scoreboard.
Didn't even cost Fine and Sam their blinks. They just waltzed on up, moseyed on up towards that speed buff, and were able to find him. Did use an ultimate there from FineOK, who hasn't gone for more defense, by the way, went Typhons with that second item.
Mike misses the chain, and after missing the chain, that's the worst feeling is they don't know if you're coming. You sneak up right behind them, and then you still miss the chain. It's just, all right, well, I guess that's the end of that one, guys. We tried. There's nothing we could have done, man.
Yeah, I can hear Mike just immediately going F6.
I'm lagging, guys. Hello?
No point. Like, well, what is the point of us being here if I'm going to miss that chain? But hey, he's 0-2-6, is in a good spot in this game. Quite a bit more player damage than some members of the Valkyries, which is as expected as Ares, particularly into this style of composition. The Dragons, that one play around that red buff has really been their big positive moment. That was a big shutdown kill for Emilito onto Panicat, though, coming out of that 1v3, because he was down 2 levels. The shutdown for him closed that gap a little bit, and that's exactly what he needed in order to try and stay relevant. Didn't help that then PBM and Hurry come over and kill him again, but at least he got that bounty on Panda.
Well, so far, Final K has foregone tankiness, only the Vampiric Shroud to add any major protections. Outside of that, it is mostly just lifesteal here. Typhon's Fang right after that Pythagoras piece, looking for sustain to try and match the sustain coming from the Valkyries.
And I like it because the Valkyries are unlikely to build anti-heal with their composition, so you're going to get good value out of this lifesteal.
Raffer in danger, under half health. PBM looking for a potential to bring him back. Nice Protector Surge gets Raffer out, and the birds from Zeros will keep him topped up back to half health, where he was even lower just prior. PBM isn't over just yet. He's still looking for more. He'll walk back towards that red buff and maybe look to get some chains on them or just pressure him out. That way the rest of his team can start setting up around this gold that's going to respawn in about a minute.
Much better ward vision now for the Jade Dragons, and this is where you would expect them to have that type of vision advantage with the lead that they have. We saw it was the opposite in the last game where Johnny was the one with the pretty big lead in the jungle. This time it's Sam, who's had another good game on this Osiris. I think despite the fact that he fell behind in the last one, his early game was really, really good. And he obviously kind of hard-inted for first blood in this game. But outside of those moments, I think he's looked pretty good on this Osiris. 4-1-2 now for him. He actually leads the Dragons in wards placed and is in a good position to try and make a play in this team fight because he is significantly ahead of not just Johnny, but of the players he's going to try and hit.
Panda looking for another multi-man fight up by himself. He's looking for the 2v1 and will at least push both of them away. Gets the Dark Portal out of Emil, but Sam is here. Misses the Lord of the Afterlife, goes way far left for it, but there's no escape left aside from through the skies. Raffer gets his carry out of danger.
Irwin jumps in looking for Zeros and has the Tycho drums. But Zeros, Johnny, and Ducky on the run.
Taunts Johnny back in, but Johnny is out for the time being. Chains connect for at least one of them, but Johnny will get the pin and keep PBM away from the team. But that sets up for the Jade Dragons. They're looking now towards this Fury that has just respawned.
On the half HP, and Ducky no ultimate, but does have his beads. He can't get in because Mike has that good zone, but does pluck Mike back.
Goes for the beads anyways to grab him back in and see if they can get something off of this. Nothing. PBM falls down. Emma with the credit for it. A surge in from Raffer, but he's in the middle of 3, and there's not enough protections in the world to save him. Panda Cat puts another one down, and Sam punishes Johnny, who dives in the back line. Makes it a 2-for-1 trade, only losing the support of the Dragons.
Hey, and you still get the Gold Fury there for the Jade Dragons, a win for the Order side. Sam just being able to do a little bit too much in comparison to Johnny, who sometimes still finds himself on these hard flanks where he's all alone, thinks that he's going to be able to get kills, and just cannot do so. Not even really that close to killing Sam in that moment. Do have to give some credit, though, to Raffer and Emilito before that Gold Fury happened. That little play to get Emil out, using the To The Skies ultimate, and Emil with a really well-timed Aegis just to know that I have to be here for the next second and a half, and I've got to just live through that. So I just Aegis all the auto attacks until that point happens. That was really cool.
Ducky tries to take the Pyromancer away, but unsuccessful. That one will go the way of the Dragons, and they'll push that gold lead even further. 7,000 gold in the lead, one of the larger leads that we've seen in these two games. 12-7 as far as the kills go, and experience, well, even further than that 7,000, looking at a 9,000 experience lead for the Dragons so far.
Not in a very good spot now if you're the Valks, because the guy who is supposed to be linked with this Afro, this Erlang Shen, is so far behind that even with an Afro, I don't think he's going to be able to stand in these team fights. Just too much damage coming from the Jade Dragons, and that on top of all their CC. Mentioned all their slows. That's typically the best thing you can pick against Erlang is some slows, and they've got plenty of those. Little surprised to see Raffer not go for a Katakeya shield in this game. I mean, that is so much value for the Valks. It's a great item on Horus already. Then you add in the healing from Johnny and from Zeros. I think they could really use that boost, especially with all the anti-heal you see on the other side. I mean, a Pestilence, a Divine Ruin, a Toxic Blade, a Cursed Ankh. Even getting marginally more healing would feel better.
Fire Giant started up by the Dragons. Only Ducky here, and he's under half health. Rapper gonna try and loop in to see if he can make anything of it, but he gets chained out. Thunder Crash in. Sam fighting against 3. He may fall down. No Lord of the Afterlife available to him, but the no escape comes through just in time for 1 to fall down, but it's already a double kill for Hurrywin, 1 kill for Mike, and Zeros is being chased by Panda Cat. 1 more basic after the spirits fall down, and that's 4 for the Dragons.
Sam utilizing that lead perfectly, just decides, hey guys, you can hit Rapper, I'll take the other 3, and just really creates infinite space for the Dragons. Sometimes dying is your job in a team fight, and I think that's a really good example. Sam uses a lot, gets a lot onto him, and the Dragons do a great job. They isolate Raffer first, we kill him easily, and then Hurrywin, as Raffer is dying, isn't hitting him with Taiko drums in order to help secure that kill. He's dedicated to helping Sam with damage with those Taiko drums. That was really good team fight awareness from Hurry, and without Emilito there whatsoever, the Valkyries already pretty disadvantaged in a 5-on-5. A 5-on-4 is child's play for the Dragons.
Now you're looking at a minimum 2 levels or more for every member of the Dragons ahead of the Valkyries, not to mention a Fire Giant around not all 5, because Sam did sacrifice himself, but I'm sure he's fine not having Fire Giant if the rest of his team was able to pick up Fire and 4 off the tail end of the fight. That extends their gold lead to 9,000 gold. Still looking for even further pressure. They've got 1 Tier 1 tower left standing, and then it's all Tier 2s and Phoenixes from there. Valhalla Valkyries are going to be on defense for the time. Johnny, he'll get the Oracle Harpies, but with that Oni Fury set to respawn, that could always be a nice consolation prize for the Dragons after these towers.
The Dragons are already up 10,000, J-Mac, and they've got a ton of gold available on the map. They've got another 5,000 gold waiting for them in these towers. 500 for the, or 1,500 rather, for these Tier 2s, and then 500 for that Tier 1 that just fell as well. So that is a scary thought for the Valkyries. The Dragons waste no time, and I think this is the right decision. Why go, the difference between being up 10,000 at 20 minutes and 15,000 really isn't that big.
Ducky goes for the Blink Pluck, hits Sam and gets his beads, and immediately will go into lurking in the waters. Johnny's in the middle of everybody, but he's tethered to Zeros to give him some extra sustain. No escape comes through, doesn't pull him back. It'll be an attempted heal, but it's not going to heal him enough. Sam picks up 1, Hurry grabs another one, and Sam able to trade it out. Fine, okay, picks up a double, and a quick deicide after. The Jade Dragons are going to close out Game 2 just shy of 22 minutes.
Yeah, that one a little bit easier for them than Game 1, which had some pretty good close fights between these two teams. I think the Dragons just came in with a good adjusted game plan for what the Valkyries wanted to do. And this is what the Dragons have done with this style of team for the last 2-3 years now, is we're going to pick what we're going to pick, we're going to do our thing, and if you make that one critical mistake in the early game, we're going to end the game faster than anybody else. We are so much better at punishing you for that mistake than anyone else. And it was one mistake from the Valkyries around that red buff, and the game's just over from that point, because Panda gets a triple kill, starts soloing Emilito, and just had too much pressure.
A good start by the Valkyries, but it all ends up the same. Dragons come up with a 2-0 win. We'll kick it back to the desk right after this break to break down the set.
The Jazzberry Jammers come out hot in their Phase 3 debut here in the SPL. 2-0 over the Valhalla Valkyries. Not without a little bit of pushback, though. Things get interesting here at the beginning of game number 2. And, of course, all this being said, and you want a Jade Dragons jersey for yourself, you head on over to shop.smiteproleague.com. Of course, furnished by our friends over at Insight Apparel Company. They got more than just the jerseys. They got arm sleeves. They got PBM's signature arm sleeve. T-shirts, hoodies, all those sorts of things. Each team has their own special item at shop.smiteproleague.com. Of course, furnished by our friends over at Insight Apparel Company. So thanks to them. Mifflin, game number 2 was how you said a lot of these Valhalla Valkyries games go, where they get off to this crazy start, they got a decent lead, and then Panda Cat and Sanford Soccer happen.
Just vintage Valhalla Valkyries game right there. Comes off to a
Why are you laughing?
roaring start and just kind of peters off a little bit towards the end there. It felt like at times they were trying to push their lead a little bit harder than I would have liked. They said, okay, well, we got off to a good one. Johnny's killing Hurrywin inside of the tier 2 at like level 6. That feels pretty good. Let's do it again. And it's just, you aren't in a position to do so. I think it also does kind of tie back into the initial concerns that we had in the P's and B's. This draft for the Valhalla Valkyries coming into a mid-game team fight from even or slightly behind is going to be incredibly unfavored. Panda Cat taking 1 versus 3s or 1 versus 4s or finding solo kills also probably not the ideal situation for the Valkyries to find themselves in. And the Jade Dragons, surprising maybe like 3 people on the planet, do come out ahead inside of this set in convincing manner.
And it's all about growth now for the Valhalla Valkyries. You take the good of this set, try to figure out where you went wrong, and work on that moving forward, because there was a lot of good for the Valhalla Valkyries. Unfortunately, when Panda Cat is playing like this and Sanford Soccer gets the freedom to go 7-2-5 on the Osiris,
Pretty good.
yeah, your life is going to be made difficult. Fine, okay, on the Jean-Qui solo here, Miff. Impactful in this game, just kind of a bystander to the onslaught of Panda Cat and Sanford Soccer. What's your takeaway?
I mean, he was second highest damage, and I can't slate what he was able to do inside of a team fight. Do I think that the Jade Dragons would have won with a different soul laner? Yes. Do I think they would have won more quickly, potentially? Yes. Do I think that we might see Jean-Qui solo again? Also, yes, but probably not in super...
100% win rate.
Yes.
100% win rate for
Okay.
Jean-Qui solo in
You're
Phase
so proud
3
of it.
of the Of course I am. I never liked the pick, but it's great. It's got a 100% win rate. I'm happy to be proven wrong. Panda Cat notched a 100% win rate on a couple of other gods here today, Don Zaburo and AMC. Panda, thanks for sitting down with me first and foremost. Look, it's an interesting meta where we're in the bonus balance period. The bow builds kind of got changed up. Is that why we saw you flex to some more intriguing hunter gods here today, or you think there's viability across the board?
I think they're viable. I think they're both good. And I want to play the characters that I want to play in the SPL more than I have in the past. Because like sometimes you're like, oh, maybe this isn't good. But I'm kind of just like going to pick the stuff that I think is good. And then if I get farmed, then so be it.
Fair enough. You did not get farmed. In fact, you did a lot of farming. And so on picks that you enjoy. That probably feels doubly good. Rewind the clock for me a little bit. Phase 2 playoffs, moving into Phase 3. What's the team focus as far as improving? What are some areas that you're focused on improving from Phase 2 into Phase 3 and into Worlds?
I'm gonna be honest with you. After the tournament, I scheduled a flight home, and I've not done anything SMITE related since.
Sure. Relaxation.
I've enjoyed the break. Yeah, I think it's actually been a big point for all of us to just enjoy our time off and not think too much and not not let it get into our heads too much. You win, you lose, and when you lose, you just gotta get yourself back up on your feet and just keep playing. I think we're just gonna try and be consistent this season and not drop sets that we should be winning and just try to be the best team we can be, because I feel like when we're losing, it's a lot of our fault.
Sure.
So I'm gonna try and clean up a little bit and just take the phase as it goes.
Hey, sometimes relaxation is all you need. One final question for you here, Panda Cat. Any extra pressure? Look, up to this point, Phase 1, Phase 2 haven't been Worlds implications. Now seeding will matter as far as group stages, things like that. Do you guys feel extra pressure, or are you just going to play your game and not worry about it?
No, I'm turning it up. I'm turning it up this season. I was slacking before.
Sure.
Prep wise and just things I didn't know who else playing a couple days before we're playing them and stuff like that. But it's over. This season, it's go time. Hoodie Mello?
Yeah, of course.
It's Hoodie P Cat this season.
Got
Oh, my headset.
He's got the hoodie ready to go. Unreal.
Yeah.
Well, Panda Cat, appreciate
That's
it.
right.
I'm terrified for everyone else if Hoodie P
That's
Cat
right.
is about to make his debut. Congrats on the win today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
You heard it here first. Hoodie Panda Cat is going to be the terror of Phase 3 of the SPL. I think an important thing to take away from this one, Myth, is what Panda Cat said there. After the Phase 2 playoffs, the team just kind of took a break. You need a break. It's a trudge when you get later. You're in that second round robin phase. You've been playing a lot of SMITE. Taking a deep breath is important. Getting your feet back underneath yourselves and starting off the phase with a big win over the Valhalla Valkyries. Let's see what the rest of this weekend has in store for us. Only one of 6 games has been played so far, and the second of 6 sets is the word I'm looking for. We played right after this the Olympus Bolts versus the Oni Warriors. That one could be interesting here. The Bolts, maybe the favorites going, or not the favorites, but one of the favorites going into the Phase 2 playoffs. They took an exit maybe earlier than they had hoped. The Oni Warriors, a team that Myth needs to show some growth over the Phase 3 portion to give us some confidence going into the playoffs and Worlds.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how the Oni Warriors have improved. And just going back a little bit, speaking on the Jade Dragons
Sure.
and their R&R session, I think that's actually incredibly healthy. Very often teams will fall down in a playoffs, or a favorite team falls to a team that they don't expect to take them out, and they kind of over practice, they get inside of their own heads. But being able to take a step back and say, all right, look, I mean, we're still really good. We're still the Jade Dragons. Let's just take a deep breath, reset ourselves, refocus, and keep our eyes on Worlds, I think speaks volumes to the maturity of this team. I've got great expectations of the Jade Dragons. But anyway, yeah, Oni Warriors, maybe not the favorite in this upcoming set, but certainly has something to prove here.
No, and I think that's the Jade Dragons that we have been very scared of, and the rest of the league has been very scared of in the past. We've taken a break, we've refocused, and now we're coming to play. We'll see if that consistency keeps up over the phase and how the Jade Dragons, things will pan out as things go on. But we're going to get the debut in Phase 3 of the Olympus Bolts versus the Oni Warriors coming up next.